So the first thing that students should know about the AAMC is that they are a professional test-making company that has to administer a very strict standardized exam for admission to medical school. So the reason why we point that out is because nothing that they do is accidental. So some students might look at the title of this video and think, really? Is ChemPhys really a psychological attack? But let's break it down. There are 4 sections of the MCAT. You have your content-based sections, which are ChemPhys, Bio, and Psych-Soc, as well as CARS. Unlike other standardized exams like the SAT, the MCAT does not vary the order of the sections, meaning every time you go in for the exam, you're going to do ChemPhys first, then CARS, then Bio, then Psych-Soc, which is a little bit weird. It's not clear exactly why the AAMC has chosen to fix the order of the sections. They've never released any formal data as to that result. Many of their documents often cite cheating risk as one of the reasons why students do the same section at the same time. But at the end of the day, students have the exact same time to finish the exam as any other student. There's not a lot of variability there. Of course, AAMC might have different reasons, but let's think about it from the perspective of them as a professional test-making company. One very interesting trend you see when you look at the pairing of the sections is that you have hard science sections, so ChemPhys and Bio, that are prepped right next to softer science sections. So for example, ChemPhys and CARS are pretty much as different as they can get from each other. Bio and Psych-Soc, same thing. So why would they do this? Why not just put ChemPhys and Bio up front? Everyone has a nice lunch break, and then they go do CARS and Psych-Soc. Basically, even though we can't confirm or deny this because AAMC has not released any official statements on the matter, if you think about it from a test-taking design standpoint, the way that these sections are stanced are basically forcing you to change modes of thinking very rapidly. For example, the way you solve ChemPhys and the way you solve Bio are actually very similar because they're both very intense passage-based sections with a high volume of content knowledge that typically overlaps. If you do Bio right after ChemPhys, there's a good chance you're going to be in the zone. You're already going to be very used to the material. You're going to be going pretty fast. You might pick up some speed. That might be bad for AAMC because you might do better on Bio than you did otherwise. So what do? Well, you break it up. By having you do ChemPhys and then CARS, which is completely different, they basically break your test-taking momentum, forcing you to reset and use different skills that currently are not warm, right? It's kind of like if you were asked to swim 100 meters and then they wanted you to rock climb for 100 meters. While it's both physical exercise, they're definitely different because for the rock climbing, you're going to be using your arms, and for the swimming, you're going to be using a lot more of your legs. But basically, that's essentially what this amounts to. And the issue with that as a whole is that, in particular, ChemPhys is always had a reputation of being the worst of the worst, especially since it's the first section on test day. Students come in already highly anxious, really stressed out, and the first thing they get is what is arguably, for many students, and we would say the vast majority of students feel the same way, the hardest section on the MCAT to take. Imagine if you walk there into test day and you can start with Psych-Soc, which most students generally feel on the whole is the easiest section on this exam. You might have a very different test day experience. But the thing is, when you start with ChemPhys and you're stressed out and you get into ChemPhys and it's just a lot coming at you at once, the test looks super different, the passages are hard, the questions are even harder, all of a sudden students usually get anxious. And when they get anxious, they tend to speed up, make mistakes, and generally skyrocket their stress level through the roof. All of that stress kind of trundles right into CARS because remember, there's only a brief break between the two sections. If you get stressed out and anxious during ChemPhys, you're going to carry that stress and anxiety into CARS, which is going to ruin your performance in that section. In between CARS and Bio, you have a pretty good 30-minute lunch break. So sometimes students can usually calm down by that time, but in this gap between ChemPhys and CARS, it's very hard to calm down for the vast majority of students if ChemPhys goes bad. And if ChemPhys goes bad, it essentially trundles down to the other sections down in the line, which unfortunately negatively affects students a lot. So is ChemPhys a psychological attack? We can't say for sure, but if you would compare the design of this exam compared to other standardized exams in the same bracket and assess the necessity of why AAMC would put a certain section that is the hardest section consistently at the front and pair all the hardest sections with softer sections to make you switch and lose your testing momentum, the picture isn't as clear as we would like to believe. And the thing that we have to remember with AAMC is that nothing is at random. So, what can students do? Honestly, being aware of this fact is very, very helpful for students because although ChemPhys is the hardest section, that also means it usually has the highest curve out of any of the sections on test day because students just miss more questions in ChemPhys on average than the other sections. So if you keep that in mind, you can keep your sense of test-taking security at peace when you go through the ChemPhys section and then realize that even if you're missing a few more, you want to remain centered and focus on your breathing exercises or meditative exercise that help center you during the exam so that you're not flustered and then you go into cars with a very clean slate and a good test-taking mentality. Of course, it's easier said than done and it happens to even the best test takers. We recommend that students are aware of this trend and just keep it in mind as they do their practices and don't sweat it too much. So we hope this helped. Alright, that was a complicated lesson. If you still need help, check out our full-length blog post that we linked in the video description, explore more of our YouTube channel, or just head on over to MCATsavior.com where you can get all of our strategy courses for free.